Here we are for another week. I've had microphone issues recently. Let me know if you can hear me or if the volume seems low. Before we get started here, I need to check something. I see we already have some questions, which is good. You're golden. Okay, very nice. Thank you for that. I'm going to double check this. Input, microphone, 100%. Okay, it should be fine. Because when I'm doing, oh God, stupid neighbor. When I'm doing my classes on Skype or Italki Classroom, the volume is like super, super low for some reason. And I just want to make sure you guys can hear me clearly, because otherwise, why bother? Have you gotten into OBS yet? It's easy to pick up in free software. Yes, I'm very aware of OBS. I use that to get video clips of things that I use in my videos, like clips from YouTube or whatever. Yes. Anyway. Okay, so for anybody who's joining the live stream and the replay, we're here every week, Sunday, 11:30 California time until 1:30 or 2 o'clock or so. So we have Timmer and Stupid User in the chat. That's the name. I'm not calling this person stupid. But glad that you guys started early. As I said, feel free to leave a question or comment, so you guys can always do that. So Timmer's first question, hope Timmer is well. Very, very nice. Welcome. My question is about A plus M or N, like man, ma'am. How do names pronounce them in real life? When do you... That's a different question. Okay, well, I have a whole lesson on that. I don't know if you've seen it. Studio. Let's go to my content. AP4. Share this. Yeah, there. Now you have a whole lesson that you can watch on that topic. I won't go into everything here because you could just watch the lesson, but there's a couple pieces involved that can make it sound different. But as I say in that lesson, is always it's possible, if natives get kind of lazy, that they might pronounce it plus That does exist. That's not the way to say it, like some teachers say. I disagree with that. It's a way that it might be said. Is always is always So if I say man, I'm not saying man, no, I'm saying man, it's still the biggest detail there's a couple other details you can learn in that lesson, but the biggest detail that makes it sound different, in my opinion, all vowels, I'm actually going to be making a lesson about this specifically very soon. All vowels, let me write this too, all vowels are partially nasalized, or they can be. They don't have to be, but they very commonly are, or they can be, before M, N, or N. Now, in the case of the nasal passageway is up here. It's all the way up in the back. Is all the way placed on in the front of the mouth. If we fully enunciate it, it's very open. So we have sort of this big contrast between these 2 points. If I say E versus een, you may not notice any difference. If I compare them directly, removing the N but still doing it like I would do it before an N, so I'll do it without an N and then like I'm going to go into an N. So normal, E, E, E. Preparing for an N, E, een, E, 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 Again, it doesn't have to do that, but it's very common that it will be partially nasalized. A little bit more go through the nose. So if I say seen versus see, if I say see, do you see it? Or I haven't seen. Okay, goes a little more through the nose. It doesn't stand out that much with most of the vowels, but my theory is that because and the nasal flap are so far apart, there's such sort of this extreme distance to opposite points in the mouth, that this nasalization stands out a lot more, and it almost makes it sound like a different vowel or a different sound. I could even do, say, if I did ah, but I nasalize it, ah, 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 ah. It almost doesn't, it kind of doesn't seem like ah anymore, but I'm not doing anything except opening that nasal flap. So watch the lesson for more details. That's, in my opinion, the biggest thing, but you can come back with more questions after you watch that if you still have questions. Another question, when do we can? Okay, so do, first quick grammar correction here. So do and can are both helping verbs here. You can only have one helping verb. Okay. It's either when do we replace or when can we replace. Those are two slightly different questions. They both work in this case, but you cannot say do and can together. So when can we replace dark L with light L, not into? If you're going to use into, you would have to use the verb change. When can we change dark L into light L? Replace, we replace something with something. So wrong preposition there. We could talk a little bit about how the logic works for those two if you want. Let me know. But anyway, so I have lessons also on that particular topic. I did mention in passing somewhere. Let's see here. I'm gonna give you. I assume maybe you've seen this lesson. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this detail in this specific lesson. Maybe I didn't. If it's not in that one, it would probably be in this one, which you should also watch because there was a little detail I forgot in the first one that I added in the second one. So a brief overview here. So the light L and the dark L, I don't like using those terms because they're kind of meaningless. They're confusing. And if they're confusing for me, they're probably going to be confusing for English learners. So I use the term full L consonant, which is the light L, and the half L vowel, which is the dark L. Now I call it the half L vowel and the full L consonant. Full L consonant is just a normal L, what you would expect. You touch and there's contact, and it's just a L. It's just an English L sound. The half L vowel is you can, after playing with it some more recently, I realized that you can technically do the dark L and still be touching if you manipulate the back right. But generally, apparently not all speakers do this, I found out recently, but the way that it works in my mouth, at least, when I do the dark L, which includes syllabic L, that includes the L-colored vowels, like all, eel, ill, etc. And that includes because there was another one, but anyway, as long as it's not la, right? If you have this sort of darker, I guess that's why they call it dark, but it kind of, I guess it can seem as darker, like then it's going to be this half L vowel, the dark L. And I call it the vowel because it does function very much like a vowel. It's not 100% like all vowels. but it does function very much like a vowel. It's created very similarly to a vowel. And I think it's better to categorize it this way, even if it may not be 100% academically accurate to call it that. That's fine. Concepts and perspective are very important and can have an impact on how well you learn. So anyway, moving on. One thing, so the basic rule is the full L, which is the light L, is start of a syllable. Okay? So that could be, it's very commonly at the start of a word, love, like, live, lot, et cetera. But it could be in the middle of a word as long as it's at the start of the syllable, not at the end of the previous syllable. So if we say alive, a lot is 2 words, so that wouldn't work, but alive, I don't know, what are some other ones? Belong. Okay. Those are the full L's, light L, okay, consonant sound. The dark L, half L vowel, half L. Aloof, good, that's a good example. This is along, yes. This is at the end of a syllable, which is very common at the end of a word. So this is where we get a lot of the L-colored vowels. So we have like all, people, ill, right, et cetera, et cetera. It can also be inside of a word if it's at the end of the syllable. So always can do that. Allow doesn't work because that's at the start of the syllable. But you get the idea, all right? I'm not always the best at thinking of examples off the top of my head. Now, there's 2 big pieces of information that we need to understand for how and why this works between these 2. Okay, those are the general rules. Number 1, there's the range of the L, which I will have a specific lesson for at some point. The range of the L, right? Every sound in every language, as far as I know, has a range. The way that it's commonly taught, yes, pull, yes, good examples, yes, those are all L-colored. Don't want to not acknowledge that. Very good. But every sound, the way that things are usually taught, right? Especially you look at the vowel chart and you say, okay, there's this here and this here and this here and this here. It makes it seem like sounds are just floating, that they have like a pinpoint, way that you have to place things and this and that. And a better way to think about it, a more accurate picture of reality, is that, right, the vowel chart is a very good tool. Number 1, sounds don't just float in the mouth. They're tied together by the mouth posture. So that's a different topic. We won't talk about that here. But each of those little points on the vowel chart, you can think of as like the nucleus or the center of the range. Every sound has a fully enunciated, super clear version. Like if I say E, I tend to pull my lips back. The sound is pushed pretty far forward. I'm using the front of my tongue. It's very high in the mouth. E, E. But I could just as easily say E, E, E. The lips are optional. The way you're usually taught is you pull the lips back in a big smile. And that's, I don't want to say nonsense, because it is a common thing that we do, especially when we're enunciating. It does tend to get involved, but the lips are not required for the E sound. And you don't have to go as fully into that position. But if you go too far out of position, you're not going to be producing the right sound. And if you get too close to the boundary between the range of 2 sounds, like say E and I, which is a common problem, you'll sort of wind up in the middle where a native speaker won't be able to tell if you're saying this one or that one. So there is a little bit of a range. Now, conceptually, the way you might imagine it, there actually is kind of a relatively large range for each sound, but because the mouth in reality is actually quite small, what to me as a native feels like a big range actually really isn't all that big, because there's not much space in the mouth, right? So That being said, when we talk about the L sound, the L is a little bit special in terms of the range because this light L, dark L thing within the context of American English, right? La, 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 o. Technically, those are two completely different sounds. Okay. They're not, it's not like this is an L sound and this is an L sound. Within American English, they're both considered L sounds. In fact, they're just considered an L sound. Natives don't really think of them or perceive them as two different sounds in any way. They're just L's, right? It's just an L. But obviously, those are two different sounds, objectively speaking. They probably have something in common that linguists might categorize them as types of L. I don't know. I'm not a linguist, but they're clearly not the exact same sound for sure. However, within the context of American English, these two sounds, L and O, create a range for one sound that we perceive as the L sound. Okay? Now, that's very important for a couple reasons, because this explains why Americans speak the way we do, or why English speakers in general speak the way that we do, but especially Americans, because we do something a little special here. And the first thing to know is that if this is a range, just like we can have a more enunciated, clear E or a lazier E, we can also have a full L consonant, the fully enunciated version of the L sound, L. That's why I call it the full L consonant. And the half L, that's why I call it half, because, again, you can touch the top, but I don't. I don't teach it with touching the top. That's not the focus of the sound, so it doesn't matter. But regardless of whether you touch or not, especially if you don't touch, it's like you're not fully forming the sound. It's like you're doing a lazy L, right? Just like a lazy E instead of a fully enunciated E, you're doing sort of like a lazy L, again, within the context of American English. So ol is like a lazy version of L, even though technically they're two different sounds. Americans don't notice that, though. So that's the important thing. Now, that being said, the fully enunciated version of a sound is always possible. The faster you speak, the more likely that you're going to get a little lazy, the more likely that certain things are going to break, certain linking rules are going to break down, certain special things might happen at like really fast speed. But if we're just talking, in the normal range of speech, let's actually look at the clearly enunciated and then the normal range. In the clearly enunciated range, if you were to clearly enunciate every word that you say, which you should not do, by the way, because you'll sound very, very strange, and it can actually make you harder to understand because we don't speak that way most of the time. But let's say I say all the little, I don't know, balls. I don't want to use all again. All the little something. All the little likes are a lot of love. Okay, let's just say that. That's the little thing. That's just one L, well, two L's. But I want to use lots of L's. Okay, now, if we follow the basic rules, we see all would use the half L, dark L, right? Little, at the first L is the full L, light L. The second one is the half L, dark L. Likes uses the full L. Lot uses the full L. Love uses the full L. Now, what I can do, again, because this is a range, if I clearly enunciate every single word in this sentence, which I wouldn't normally do, but if I were to choose to do that, I can do this. All the little likes are a lot of love. All the little likes are a lot of love. So you can basically, if you fully enunciate a dark L, it becomes a full L, a light L, okay? Now you can still keep that dark L in the back part of the tongue, But instead of saying like, okay, all, if I say, right, all, I can still end up in that same regular L position. And it's basically the same. Full enunciation, yes. It sounds poetic, full enunciation. Well, I obviously enunciated would be the full version of the sound. Like it's not being reduced or anything, but full helps to clarify and emphasize that we're making sure it's pronounced fully, right? So full pronunciation, full enunciation. Probably full pronunciation would mean enunciation, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Words get mixed up. Now, so if you fully enunciate what would be a dark L, it can turn into a light L. However, Americans do something special. We won't always do this, but it is a common thing that happens, especially the faster we're speaking. Okay, this can happen in the normal range of speech, which in the normal range of speech, the basic rule can apply. So all, dark, little, light, dark, likes, light, lot, love, light, light. We could follow those basic rules. But what Americans like to do, particularly whether in the normal range or especially at the fast range, is we'll turn everything into a dark L. Everything, even the light L's. Okay. So in that case, I can say, instead of little, I can say little, little, which can be very hard for you to do. For me to concentrate and isolate that, it is a little difficult for me to do. But if I'm just speaking and I say the little, it's not too particularly difficult. But it is more difficult than just doing a regular L. So I can say all the little likes are a lot of love. All the little likes are a lot of love. Now, with that many L's next to each other, it gets a little hard to understand. It gets a little hard to pronounce. So we probably wouldn't do it that much with so many L's. But in the flow of speech, anytime that there's an L, an American, even if it's supposed to be a full L consonant or a light L, an American is likely, if they're not enunciating, they're likely to just make it a dark L, the half L vowel. It kind of doesn't matter. It's kind of whatever comes out as long as you're not clearly enunciating. You don't have to do that. You can just follow the basic rule and you should sound fine. But in order to help your listening, you should be aware that Americans do that if we're not speaking clearly. So if you listen to like speeches and stuff, you're probably not going to see that very much. But if even in TV shows, they might not do that because actors are generally pretty good for the most part of mimicking real speech, especially really good actors. But sometimes things tend to be a little over enunciated, because the characters need to be heard and understood and this and that. And so the best sources would be, if you can interact with the natives, that's always great. If you can listen to like informal interviews, podcasts, things like that, where people are going to be speaking much more naturally. Again, anytime you have something that's going to be recorded like a podcast, the speaker might unconsciously enunciate a little bit more, might not come out as much, might not happen as much. But anytime you have a chance to listen to real speech, like informal interviews are always one of the best things. You'll probably start to notice that Americans do that a lot. So Twitch streams, okay, yeah. That's funny. I feel weird now because I know who Stupid User is and nobody else does, because it was somebody else that changed their name. But anyway. Okay. And yes, I see Abdullah's here. I'm going to go back. So I was answering a question all the way from the beginning, talking about the L sounds for a little while. It's a lot of information, but that's the reality of how the L works in American English. So this is one point where, right, I always talk about how like knowledge is not skill, right? And the skill is generally more important. But this is one point where there's certain details of knowledge that give you a big impact in understanding what's going on and can improve your listening and your pronunciation. So it's kind of a lot for one sound, but that's just what it is. Okay. So now I can move on. Blah, 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 blah. Lots of my comments. I'm very active today, apparently. Some Southern people say E and E before L. Very annoying. Like eel. Eel or ill. It'll be the same thing, I guess. Yeah. I caught me an eel. No, that actually be E. My brother fell ill. Yeah, I can imagine that happening. But Southerners, I mean, not necessarily all Southerners have an accent, and there's also a range of accents from the South, but that's not general American. So that's its own thing. It can do whatever it does. That's fine. But I understand how, as an English learner, it can maybe be annoying because you're like, why do you have to do it different? It makes it harder to understand you. For us, we don't generally have any problems understanding them, but the tap R is considered a TD sound. What? Oh. In Southern speech? Maybe, I don't know. Okay. Mr. McValley, welcome. How are you doing? I'm good. Hope you're well as well. Please, how do you pronounce? Oh. Well, see, there's a funny thing about English, which is that the spelling often doesn't match the sound, as we very often know. So when I first saw the word that you put there, my brain thought of two pronunciations at the same time, just from that little B-U-R-G-H. That by itself is not a word, which obviously I'm not saying that you're saying it's a word, but that piece by itself is not a word. Because of that, and because of how the GH can be pronounced differently in different words, if you were to just give me that piece and you say, how do you pronounce this? I could not give you a single answer. I actually wouldn't know. The two things that popped in my brain at the same time were either Berg, where the H would be silent, or Burg, with an H. So there's no G, but the H is pronounced. And that's based off of other spelling patterns. Or it might just be Burr, with the GH being silent. Because we have things like thought, or, well, yeah, thought, where it's ah, there's no GH sound, there's no g, it's just ah. Or there's though, where it's an O sound, but it's spelled with GH. So there's also no G or H there. And then there's things like cough, where it actually turns into an F sound. There's things like, well, cough, laugh, tough, those are all F sounds. So the GH is actually an F. There's historical reasons why this happened. You don't have to care. It's stupid. It sucks. I know. It just is what it is. In these two particular words, you would expect that they would be pronounced the same. And they're not. Because English. The first one, I don't know how the average American would try to pronounce it, but I'm pretty sure that most Americans would probably try to say something like Edinburgh or Edinburgh. But quite a few of us have been exposed to the more correct pronunciation of that to know that it should be something more like Edinburgh or Edinburgh. How do they say that? Edinburgh. I think in Ireland they say Edinburgh or something like that. It's more like a bruh instead of burr. I actually don't even completely know. I'm not 100% sure the proper way to say it. But if you say Edinburgh or Edinburgh, that will communicate the idea to Americans. They'll know what you're talking about. And you'll be close enough to the right pronunciation. You'll probably have to ask an Irish person how to pronounce it. For the second one, this one is actually easy, but it's a little frustrating. There's no H, there's just a G. So it's Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh. H is just spelling. It doesn't have any effect on anything. There's just a regular G at the end, which you can stop if it doesn't link to anything, or you can let out a little weak G. That's it. So that one's easy. But good question, yeah. Isolating half out at the beginning is like doing the tap R by itself, a bit challenging. Yes. Is there a way to simplify the word genuinely? Genuinely. If you're speaking quickly enough, it would definitely have to be on the faster end of normal at least. But in fast speech, like really fast speech, this could definitely work. You could say it like genuinely. So we still have that Y. Maybe you can drop the Y. I probably wouldn't go that far. But instead of like genuine, you just keep the I and the Y and the I, drop the ue, the U and the linking W, and you just get yin, genuinely. I genuinely like it. Recommended, even if you're on the faster end of normal, we're probably still going to say genuinely. So only if you're speaking really quickly would I recommend reducing it. Even then, you still don't have to reduce it, but that's where it would start to sound much more fine. No problems. Let's see here. Yeah, and commenting back on the Twitch streams again, because I was talking about like natural, not clearly enunciated speech, just how people normally speak. Twitch streams is a good example of that. But also when we're talking about, which I probably don't have to tell you guys this, but might depend on your age. If you're in Gen Z, then you definitely probably don't need me to tell you this, but we have the internet. And when we're talking about input, obviously, like there's all kinds of learner materials and stuff, but there's so many different things that you can get input from. And a common mistake that I see language learners make, I made this mistake myself when I was teaching myself Spanish, is like there's nothing wrong with learner materials. Learner materials can be very, very useful and very good, especially if they're constructed well. But regardless of your level, you want to be trying to focus on things that you're interested in as much as possible. So don't like if you don't watch the news in your native language, don't watch the news in English. Like now if you, let's say that you're like, well, I want to learn English and I want to know what's going on in the world. There's a reason there. Or if you say, well, okay, the news tends to use the passive voice a lot more in English and I want to get more exposure to that, then from a grammar perspective, fine. Okay, you can get some more exposure. But in general, if you wouldn't do it in your normal life in your native language, don't do it in English, right? So Twitch streams are a great idea if you would watch Twitch streams or something similar in your native language, right? Now, I don't know how many, I'm sure there's plenty of Twitch streamers in other languages. I know there's quite a few Spanish Twitch streamers, but there's probably not a whole lot of like Polish or Swahili Twitch streamers in the world. So depending on what language you're learning, obviously here it's for English. So you guys have, probably more options than anybody, but depending on what language it is, Twitch may not be too much of an option for you, but you get the point, right? Like try to focus on things that you are naturally interested in, topics that you're naturally interested in, mediums that you would use anyway in your native language in your daily life, like changing your phone, your computer into that language. Instead of watching the news in your language, watch it in English if you watch the news, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just another little point on that. Feel and fill. Okay, this is not a Southern thing. I think I mentioned this. I might have mentioned it in the extra practice for the L-colored vowels lessons. I have 2 of those. So fill is a word. It uses I. Feel is a word. It uses E. Same thing with deal and dill, wheel and will, whether that's W-E''L-L or W-H-E-E-L. Those are both wheel. A common thing that happens is if we're not fully enunciating, like if we're getting a little lazy or speaking a little faster, still it could happen perfectly well in normal speed speech. It doesn't have to be super fast. But if we're just getting a little lazier, we're not fully enunciating eel, that specific L-colored E. You can't really do this usually with a regular E. But if it's an L-colored E, it's very common that we'll sort of reduce it to ill. Now, normally we don't do that because it creates a different word. And obviously we don't want to say a different word. We don't want to say fill, we want to say feel. So if you say I feel bad, we don't want to say I feel bad. But especially if the context is clear, if I say I feel bad, that's obviously feel. Fill doesn't make any sense there. Or I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it. Dill wouldn't make any sense there. So there's no misunderstanding. It's perfectly fine. So that's not a Southern thing. That's just an American thing. Maybe they do that in British English too. I don't know. But that's a very, very common thing that Americans do. Anyway, no, it sounds hard to understand. It just sounds annoying. I guess I love Southern accents. They sound great. My brain wanted to go from redneck to RP for some reason. I was like, no, that's not going to come out well. So if you go with a very stereotypical, heavy sort of Southern accent, that can be a little harder to understand. For us, we still usually don't have much problems. But there's a range, right? I'm not perfect at all the different variations. Sometimes when I try to do a Southern accent, it'll come out more stereotypical hick. Sometimes it comes out a little more Texas. Sometimes it comes out a little more Georgia. All them Southern belles down there with that influence from French Louisiana. Instead of Louisiana. New Orleans becomes Nolans. I was down in Nolans. Yeah. So I think it sounds great. But moving on, tap R is a reference to the flap TD. Isn't it a tap R sound that's represented as TD in American English? No. Absolutely not. So the tapped R, flapped R, trilled R. Well, I guess trilled would be multiple, but single trill, single tap. Number one, it's not exactly the same sound, and that's, if nothing else, due to mouth posture, because it's probably not going to hit exactly the same place. It's very, very, very similar. Now, it has nothing to do with the TD in English. It only has to do with the flapped TD in English, which, of course, there is no flapped T because it's always a D sound. But if it's spelled with a T and it matches the criteria to flap, it turns into a D. So there is no flapped T sound. It doesn't exist. And we always want to, are you the cat person? We always want to make sure that we don't confuse sounds and spelling, even if it's IPA. There's the IPA is less of a problem for that because it's supposed to, at least ideally, theoretically, it's supposed to match all the sounds. But even that's not sufficient because a sound is not a symbol, or a symbol, same thing, but a symbol is not a sound. It doesn't matter how accurate of a symbol you have. A symbol is a visual medium. It's a visual representation. It has nothing to do with auditory sound. So we always want to focus on the sounds themselves. And in this case, what would be, say, for example, in Spanish, like pero, which I'm not saying that very well, but pero is that a little better? All I'm doing there is basically a flat D. And I know that it can sound a bit better because all I'm using is an American flat D. It's not quite right, but it sounds very, very, very similar. But again, not for the normal T and D. Edinburgh next to Pittsburgh. Yeah, Edinburgh. Yeah. I don't know how Americans say it, but I'm positive the British say it as Edinburgh. Yeah, they obviously there's a history there, and Ireland is part of the UK, so they would probably be able to, they're probably more likely to pronounce it correctly than us uneducated, uncultured, monolingual Americans. Glory to the empire. Yeah. You're being so Jen. What? Unless you meant words in general. What? What do you mean Jen? Did I say Jen? I was talking about Gen Z. Like Generation Z. Maybe that's where that's coming from. S Twitch stream, a podcast conversation between two natives being. Dude, you can't just use gamer ranking systems and expect everybody to understand. Although a lot of my audience probably would. S class in games is like higher than A. So if you think of, which I know many countries, they have like a point system, like 1 to 10 for your grades instead of A, B, C, D, F. We skip E. But you're probably familiar enough with American culture to know that our grading system is letter based, not number based. Especially RPG games or fantasy based games, S class is like higher than A. It's like super or something like that. I don't know what it specifically stands for, but so what Stupid User is saying is that Twitch streams are like the #1 best resource. A class, A level would be podcast conversation between two natives, and then anything under that is still good, but that wouldn't be as good as the previous two. Yeah. I think that's the first time I ever explained what S class means. Never had the reason before, because all my friends are, well, almost all my friends are gamers. Who am I kidding? I don't have friends. Where's my drink? Okay, so they always say it in feel and fill, no matter what case. Not how you do it. Well, it could be that in the South, maybe, and I wouldn't say all Southern accents necessarily, because again, there's a range, but it could be that in one or more Southern accents, it's a permanent replacement and they pronounce both the same. That's fine. But I don't care. I'm talking about general American English. I know you're talking about Southern English, but whether it's for your sake or for somebody else who didn't know that, I felt it was a useful point to bring up. So, see, I try to find opportunities to play off of the things that you guys give me, even if it's not directly what you're talking about or asking. Mama used to Weruk. At that. Oh, I guess it's supposed to be ah. See, that's one reason I would never write it as a double A, because to me that just means lengthen the sound, like you're repeating the sound. It would be AH. That's why we write it with a silent H. At that grocery store. Oh, I see. Okay. I couldn't tell what you were doing until that last word. I was like, oh, this must be a Southern accent. Okay. I was just like, what is this nonsense? My mama used to work at that grocery store. Yeah, sounds pretty Southern. Anyway. Okay. For some reason, YouTube wants to know if I should hide this or not. The YouTube filter is, I mean, I guess overall the YouTube filter does a pretty good job at catching things, but oh, it's far from perfect. Forrest Gump tier mockery, I guess. Yeah. Now, if you want to sound like Forrest Gump, you really gotta draw out your sounds. Mama told me life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. It's a good movie. Anyway, just for reference, of course, if any Southerners ever find this, or if this is pointed out to any Southerners, of course, I am not mocking you. I like to have fun with sounds. I love Southern accents. Just a disclaimer. Because I know some people jump on, they're like, oh, this and this, and you said that. It's like, no, don't misunderstand me. Are you the cat person, or you were? I'm not. Sorry about that. Oh, God. Just that response. It just sounds so formal and so. It's like, are you the cat person? I'm not. I'm deeply sorry about that. He's so serious. Good job. Anyway, if anybody in the chat got questions to ask, go ahead and don't hesitate to do so. Quick note about got here. Perfectly fine, but it does sound more informal. Just a little note there for people. If anybody in the chat got questions. Okay, go ahead and don't hesitate to do so. Yes, moderator, stupid user. Which, I mean, you could be a moderator, I guess, but don't go too crazy. I don't mean to hold you back just because I say a lot. Yeah, no, yeah, good, no problem. Genuine. I would never use gen for the word genuine. Oh, I see, because Abdullah was asking about like a way to reduce genuine. See, I don't remember all the stuff I was talking about because you guys asked so many different things. That sounds like something that Gen Z might do. I really don't know because I'm just a stupid millennial. But if they say like, which we kind of, I don't know if we started it, but I know millennials totes instead of totally, which sounds very informal and like sounds like Valley Girl speak, but we'll use it in like when we're playing with the language in sort of a mocking way, like, oh, that sounds totes interesting. Yeah. So I can imagine Gen Z saying like, instead of I'm genuinely interested, like, oh yeah, I'm gen interested. Like that totally sounds something like Gen Z, someone from Gen Z would say. Delio's here in the house. Welcome, Delio. Delio. Hey peeps. Hey Josh, what's good? Everything's good. Totes my growth, or totes my goats, yeah. There you go. Yeah, Delio obviously is an advanced speaker. That's definitely a sign of an advanced speaker. Very advanced, actually. Yes, I hope you're fine as well. We're just here hanging out, asking questions. Nobody asked me, but my country grades are number based from 0 to 20. From 0 to 20. Are you sure you're not from Asia? That seems like something that would exist like in China or Japan or something, where it's like if you get a 0, you're just like, you're immediately outcast from society. Like you're just like we're, it's like, no, we're sending you to America. We're sending you to America to go to school because clearly you can't succeed here. Yeah, you would think that the supposed greatest country in the world, which is the most powerful country in the world, but you think the supposedly greatest country in the world would have the best education system, and we actually have one of the worst education systems. Does not bode well for the future. But anyway, that aside, 0 to 20. What would that even be? Like, why do you need that many levels of distinction? It doesn't make any sense. Like, I thought 0 to 10 was a lot. When I first heard that some countries do that, I was like, wow. We only have, what, 5? A, B, C, D, F. I think we skipped E because F is like fail. It matches. So we're just like, well, we don't need another one. We'll just go to F. That's a huge grading system. I thought, wait, A through F is much easier. Yeah. A through F minus E. I know nobody asked me either, but in my country, A means you're so stupid. A plus less stupid. That's so backwards. So A is the lowest. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Because if it's A plus, that means you're going A up. So you're less stupid. So it's A, B, C. Is that how it works? Like, I don't. That's literally backwards. I'm sure there's a way it makes sense, but that doesn't make any sense to me. And it doesn't matter if nobody asked you guys, right? We're here to chat and hang out. Topic is brought up. You can comment on it. Educational purpose, yeah. Procrastinating. Oh, I know. It's so hard not to procrastinate. Got an assignment I should attend to, but I feel so lazy now. So nothing better than hanging out with my favorite crowd. Yay! You are the in crowd. Good job. One of us. One of us. References. Okay. Happens to be the best of us. I hope you sorted out. I, for example, got phase 2 to do today, but don't have the vibe right now, so I've joined the stream. Copium, yeah. I like the word copium. What was that? It was a song. I have to look it up. If anybody here, number one, if you haven't listened to country music, you should check it out because you might like it. Country music is one of my top favorite genres. It's like tied in number 1 between country music and pop punk. I'm strange, but there's a particular artist, Luke Combs. Even if you don't necessarily like country music, this guy is a lyrical genius. Some of his songs aren't necessarily like too lyrically impressive, but God, some of the lines he does, I'm just like, this guy's he's literally a genius when it comes to lyrics. I'm trying to think of that. What was it? Canada coping something. Anyway, I'll have to look it up. But yeah, Luke Combs. Look up country music. It's great. There's a stereotype in American English that all country music is sad, which traditionally the roots of country music, what we would call classic country now, like true classic country way back in the day. I think it was pretty much all or primarily sad. And there was a tradition of that continued. So there's like a stereotype. There's plenty of country music that's not sad. So if you've heard that stereotype and you're just like, oh, it's all sad and boring and I don't like it, there's plenty of not so sad songs, especially from Luke Combs. Even some of the sad songs sound like really more energetic and upbeat. They're still sad, but they're not what you might expect. Anyway, enough about country music. Hi, Josh. I pet my pet. Is it correct? Yes. Yes, it is. So pet is a verb and pet is a noun, and you can put them together. It's not a problem. So that's probably where it came from. Disconnected. I don't even know what that's related to. Okay. Kyoto is here. Welcome, Kyoto. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for the English lessons. Helps a lot. No problem. No problem. God, it's already 12:30. It's been an hour. Japan is like the States, I think, maybe. I don't know. I've never actually been to Japan, but there's obviously a lot of Western influence on Japan, but I don't think it's like the States. American schools are free lunch in comparison to other countries. Well, I mean, there are some countries that have very poor or little educational infrastructure at all. So, I mean, it's better than nothing. But as someone who attended American public schools and as someone who does not have children but have heard from people who do have children, it's gotten worse since I was a student. And when I was a student, it was largely a joke. It's just lucky I'm smart. But of course, I guess I can't completely say that because I am, I suppose, smarter than average, I guess, which I don't like to say because I never would have said that before. But that seems to be the case. God, that sounds so arrogant. That's not what I mean. Don't take that out of context. I'm referencing a whole backlog of experience here. We all have our own intelligences and strengths, of course. When you say American schools and free lunch, I know what you mean when you use the term free lunch, but that just makes me think of literal free lunch, which if you're poor in American schools, you can get a free lunch. So that's where my brain went with that. I would know because I used to get free lunches. I'm glad you enjoyed them. Jess has been working hard to make those possible. Yeah, trying to. And trying not to get distracted by anime. That's the hardest thing, honestly. It really is. Not the fact that I'm working 2 jobs plus trying to do a YouTube channel. It's the anime that really sucks me in. Could you check a video? Maybe. It's about the word, welcome, Anderson. It's about the word library being pronounced as library. Okay, someone already answered that question for me. It came out that I didn't hear the R. So I would like to hear your feedback and thoughts on that. Well, what's the video? If you put a link, it's not going to post the link. So you have to give me the title of it and a timestamp. And I can check that. Procrastinate awesome. Procrastinate is not awesome. It's the devil. It's literally the bane of my existence. Stream on YouTube. I'm not even really much of a streamer. I'm only here once a week. But okay. Procrastination is the only job I'm qualified for. Yeah, there we go. That sounds about right. Everybody likes the word copium in such a hard time like these. Yeah. Procrastinate a lot before when I was younger. Now I just face things and I'm honest about them. That sounds, yeah, I mean, that's what you got to do. But still, it doesn't make the allure of procrastination any less powerful. Oh, school grading system. Oh, I see. College tier subjects, junior high school, that sucked. Yeah. Well, they usually do have, it's called AP. I should do that properly, AP, which stands for Advanced Placement. I had AP English from 10th grade to 12th grade. I don't think it was available in 9th grade. And that was really easy. And then I had math was always a weakness just because I only had one teacher that was ever able to teach it to me effectively. But I know I had AP history in 10th grade and 11th grade. I didn't have to take any more history after that, so that was it. Any other AP courses? English and history. I think that was it. Yeah. There's also like AP calculus and stuff like that, but I didn't do that because I barely got through math. For me, those were still pretty easy. Like, I don't really have any problems. You compare it. See, I also know, I'm also talking about from like a California perspective. Like the California public education system is particularly bad. And I know that from experience because when I was 10, we moved to Missouri and we were there for 2 years. And when I first got there, I was halfway through 5th grade. I was kind of lost. By the time I got through 7th grade, came back to California, started 8th grade. What they were learning in 8th grade, I had already learned in 7th grade and a little bit in 6th grade in Missouri. So the standards in California are not as high, at least for public schools. And so I got this reputation for being like the smart kid, even though I was like, no, I've already learned this. Like, I'm not. In fact, I always thought I was pretty stupid, not particularly smart. But yeah. But by the time I got into like 10th, 11th grade, that partially went away. So that was good. But anyway, your intelligence is that of a god. I doubt that. I very much doubt that. But yeah, no, there's multiple types of intelligence. There's musical intelligence, linguistic intelligence. I'm high in linguistic intelligence for sure. Spatial intelligence, mathematical intelligence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All different kinds of intelligence. And everybody's got something. There's emotional intelligence, social intelligence. I have like 0 emotional intelligence and pretty much 0 social intelligence. So anyway, or distracted by some student, which is worse than anime. I don't know. I mean, I can kind of ignore the student, but I can't ignore the anime. No. Yeah, it kind of just depends. Like right now it's anime season. If it's not anime season, I usually don't have a problem. And by anime season, I just mean like when new anime comes out, which technically is kind of, it seems all the time, but like the big ones, right? Like the big popular ones, obviously they only run for a certain time and then you got to wait for a new season to come out. So if there's nothing that I really care about, it's like I just don't watch much anime. But if I find something new, or if a new season of like My Hero Academia or Overlord or Fire Force or something like that comes out, like I'm just glad they only come out once a week because otherwise I would have no choice but to sit and binge watch. That's how powerful anime is on me. There's actually a period of time I was so sad during that time. Probably for like 5 or 6 years where I didn't watch any anime. Like I intentionally avoided watching all anime because of the negative effect it has on me. And I was so sad during that time. And then when I started watching anime again, I was just like, oh, sweet, sweet awesomeness. It's just glorious. So yeah, it's a problem. Anime is like, I don't want to get demonetized, but anime is like a very powerful drug for me. But anyway, AP and honors, but you at least get to choose. I didn't have that. I literally was forced to do AP tier classes with 6 classes. You're fine. Maybe not the math. IT, you had an IT class that's not even available. Well, I mean, maybe now it is. I don't know. But when 2007, I graduated in 2007. I mean, YouTube was just pretty much just created at that point. So social media was still very, very new. I guess that makes sense that we wouldn't have an IT thing at my school at that point. But still, I doubt they even have one now. Biology, physics. I did take a physics class in 12th grade. Obviously, there's math and physics. I don't like math. Math is hard. Needless to say, I did not do very well in that class. But I managed to get by with a C. Chemistry, I didn't have to take chemistry. I think we had the choice between physics or chemistry, and I chose physics. See, that's the other reason why our schools suck, because like I can't speak for all countries, but I imagine a lot of countries, especially if you come from like an advanced Asian country like Korea or Japan, that like obviously the sciences are very much pushed, like math, biology, physics, chemistry, like all these things. And I imagine maybe you have some choices here and there, but I imagine that either A, you're probably going to touch multiple things, like say physics and chemistry, or B, you're going to go really deeply into one of those, even at like within high school. Where we're kind of like, well, we know it's important, but we'll make you do this one. You can choose between that one. You only have to take like 1 year of it, maybe 1 semester of it. It's like, it doesn't seem like the sciences at the high school level. Like, I mean, they'll say that it's important, but you compare it to the way that it, at least my impression of the way that it sort of gets pushed and why the level of importance that it has in other countries, it's just like it's almost like we don't care. Like, I don't really remember hardly anything from my biology class, and I passed it with an A. That's the other thing. Americans, which, I mean, there's probably plenty of people who do this in places, but I know like some places, right, it's you're supposed to learn these things, like actually learn them and remember them. What most Americans do in most classes is we'll learn it and remember it. We'll learn it well enough and remember it long enough to pass the test, and then it's gone. Most of it's gone. So, yeah. Which is another problem I have with the traditional education system, because it's all about, can you jump through this hoop? Right? Because there's a difference. The test is supposed to show that you have the information. But unfortunately, the way that it seems to be, I don't know if they've changed it, but the way that it seems to be done in my experience is all the test does is prove that you remembered enough up to the point of the test. And it doesn't actually check any real learning that happened. So we have a lot of methodological, that's a word, methodological issues as well. But again, I'm not up on all the details of that and the latest things and whatever. So hopefully it's better. But Walking the Trenches 4K, it's a video with the phrase National Crisis Kensington. Okay. 30. Yeah, okay. Copy that. Copy. Paste. That's what I wanted. Oh, straight to YouTube. Okay. So you're watching some like real live, like vlog journalist type stuff. That's a good resource if you're interested in that type of thing. Definitely going to find natural language there. 30 seconds. Okay, we're looking for the word library. Library. Is it 30 seconds or 30 minutes? 30 seconds. All right, that's what I expect, or what I suspected was the case. see the exact way. So he says like library. This is what I thought I was gonna find when you sent me the link. The word library does have a bit of a range of pronunciation. There's a particular way that within the speech of African Americans, there's a particular way that they tend to pronounce it that's a little bit different, which is kind of like how he said it, library. That is not the standard general American pronunciation in any way. It's not even a reduction or a variation. As I've said many times before, there's nothing wrong with that. It's fine in itself, but it's not the general American standard way to pronounce the word. So as long as you're aware of that, you can use that pronunciation if you want. But if you are trying to go for more of a general American neutral type sound, I would not pronounce the word that way. So the word library, fully enunciated, we have like library. Something kind of like this. The R links between the R and the E. Library. You can reduce it to library, especially in faster speech, because we're not going to take the time to say both of those probably. I'm at the library, or library. How does that work? Library. This is going to be weird to transcribe. Something like this, where instead of that bear, and then the E that the R connects to, you can sort of, it's not holding the R, it's not library, but it's going to the R, and then either, I've talked about this before, like if there's like wearer, it's basically the same thing as that with the R part, where you either make a little change with the position of that R, or you modulate the flow of the breath and the voice down and back up in order to create sort of a little tiny separation between those two R's instead of holding it as one long R. So you can do that. You're basically like saying two R's next to each other, just like regular R sounds. Library. And because you speed that up, it can naturally become library, because then the first one just disappears. So there's sort of from library to library to library. That would be sort of the range of pronunciation for that word. That last one, well, not in order of what I wrote them, but the library would be perfectly fine in really fast speech. If you're speaking more in the normal speed, it can maybe sound a little bit weird. So you might want to go with the library or library, the full pronunciation. And then, of course, if you're enunciating, you probably want to use the full pronunciation. Let's go to the beach. I love that the YouTube filter caught this because of the person you mentioned. I guess the filter does work. I'll go ahead and allow it anyway. One of the most evil people in history. I will come back down to that in a second. Don't worry, Alan. Okay, moving on. Talked a lot about public schools today. Substitute teacher, yeah. Well, thank you. Inspiration. Seasonal stuff. Yeah, I know. Waiting for the third episode, so am I. It took them long enough just to release the new season. I was just like, when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, they finally made it. Now you have to wait for the episodes. It's like, why? I need my drugs. But yeah, no, I just like anime. I just like anime. Obviously, there's a lot of the big ones. I was never really big on Naruto, Bleach, or One Piece. I know there's huge fan bases for those, and just for saying that, I'm going to be like condemned forever. Not that they're bad. I could never really get quite into them. Bleach was good in the beginning, but after like the first, I don't know. Once they, I know it kind of, it picks up in a way once the whole Soul Society thing starts going, but I don't know. I just started to lose interest. So I was like the only one of my friends that was just like, yeah, I'm done with this. But then there's other things like, Attack on Titan, you hear a lot about. I'm like, that doesn't seem interesting. I saw like an episode. I'm like, okay, giants eating people, whatever. And then I decided to give it another chance. I was like, oh my God, this is one of the best animes ever. So, and then I find new things every once in a while. Like I recently found Hataraku Mao, which does not translate very easily, but it's like the overlord or the demon king gets a part-time job or works part-time or something like that. It's a reverse isekai where instead of transporting to a fantasy world, the demon king from a fantasy world came to the modern world, and he has to live in the modern world with no magic or very little magic. I like it because it's very funny and it's a reverse take. But I just like anime, so that's why. Spy Family. I watched like the first. I don't know if I watched the second episode. I watched the first episode and I was just like, this is boring. Maybe I should give it another chance. But I was like, it's kind of interesting, but I think I'm done. I like Komi-san though. Komi-san's a good one. I avoided anime for 2 years too, but I'd watch it on a day or two throughout the year. Yeah, exactly. Anime is my copium. That's how I cope. Blah 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 blah. School. Yes. Thank you. Ask English questions. Do you agree that when compared to most neutral sounding British accents, the sort of mainstream neutral sounding American accent is more focused on vowel sounds as opposed to consonant sounds, which means that consonants seem to be generally softer, whereas messing up just a couple of vowel sounds is enough to give you an accent? Interesting question. I never thought about it that way. I'll try to pay attention to that. Off the top of my head, if I think of a British accent, their vowels, their consonants do seem to be quite crisp and clear sounding, I think. But I don't know. I can kind of, just off the top of my head, I can kind of see where the question is coming from, but I'm not really sure how to answer that. I can say that vowel sounds are very important in American English, of course. But I mean, they're also important in British English. So I don't know. It's an interesting question. I want to go to the beach with, along with, or together with the devil. Are all correct. To go to the beach. They're all correct, yes. But there's some nuance here. The first option, just using with, would be the most basic, probably most common thing. If you add together, it's kind of repetitive. Like we can do it, but like together means with. Like, in fact, the keyword the best keyword that I was able to identify for the core feeling and logic of the preposition with is the word together. So those are very, very tightly tightly tied together. As I say close, but along with also is correct. And that can maybe mean the same thing, but to me, again, context is important. That can sort of make the difference between one or the other. But if you say along with, to me, that sounds more like, okay, if you just say with, it's like this person is going and I want to go with them. If you say along with, to me, it can sound more like this person is going and I also want to go. Probably with them, but it's a slightly different thing. It's not necessarily focused on going with the person. It's focused on also going to that place, probably like at the same time. You happen to be with the person, but there's a slightly different focus there. It feels a little different, but it would still be grammatically correct. Yes. Good question. Good question. But anyway, okay. Saying reading with dyslexia puts me to sleep. Yeah. I have number dyslexia, which is very annoying. I don't have actual like regular dyslexia, although sometimes that can happen, but it's not a problem I have. But numbers get very easily mixed up in my head, even if I'm looking at them. Not super bad like I imagine some people get with regular dyslexia, but numbers don't like to stay in place for me. That's one reason why I have trouble with math. Better watch the show, yeah. Finn is here. Welcome, Finn. I heard someone say opportunity as opportunity. Does that sound remotely okay? I had the opportunity to speak to him. Did you have an opportunity to speak to him? You had an opportunity. I had an opportunity to speak to him. Maybe in really fast, lazy speech, possibly. It does sound maybe like it's coming from a regional thing. Could possibly exist maybe within African American vernacular. I can imagine that would sound to my ears at least like it would fit as a way that they might pronounce it. But in regular standard speech, if you're not speaking super fast, I would not do that. I didn't like Bleach, never touched Rudo. Long series can get boring after a while. They can. Dragon Ball Z, no. That's for sure. Dragon Ball Z is the GOAT. Well, the whole Dragon Ball series. Dragon Ball Super was awesome. I was so sad when it ended. But I'm really waiting. Like, in my opinion, the single best anime of all time. It's so annoying. I hate my neighbor. Yes, we know you have a fancy car. Nobody cares. My opinion, it's a tough call. It's a tough call because obviously Dragon Ball is up there and stuff. But my single favorite anime of all time is Sword Art Online. SAO, Sword Art Online. The second season, I think it was the second season, where they went into like the Elfheim Online, the fairyland or whatever. Kind of slowed down, wasn't as good, got better by the end, but with that one exception, especially like Alicization and the first season, oh my god, it's so good. It's so good I could even watch it with English dub. That's how good it is. You could rewatch it with, like, I don't rewatch things. Like, very rarely do I rewatch things. I don't have time. I don't have the attention. I've already seen it. But SAO, I could not only rewatch, but I could rewatch it dubbed. I would be okay with that. That's how good it is. Anyway, Yeah, most people don't understand. Like, they're like, oh, anime, it's a cartoon, it's for kids. It's like, yeah, it happens to be animated, but it's not like a cartoon in the West. Obviously, we have adult cartoons these days, but back in like when it was like Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry, like, I mean, yeah, that's for kids, But a lot of anime, like there's anime where there's blood everywhere. Like, it's a lot of it is not for kids. It just happens to be animated, and the storytelling is amazing. I love the medium. But anyway, yeah. The TS rule you talked about in the word once, nasalizing the A and going into a regular S. Isn't that the sort of same rule I mentioned to you some weeks ago? Yes. I forgot specifically what you called it, and I wasn't thinking of that specifically. As I was playing with the TS thing, I realized that we could do that, and then I was like, I think Finn said something about that, because I remember we were talking about something with like the NT and all that. So yeah, that's another example of that. And since you can always drop a glottal stop in normal and fast speech, it makes sense for it to come out as was. Well, be careful with normal speech. If you're on the slower end of normal, you probably don't want to drop the glottal. But definitely in faster or on the faster end of normal, yeah, it's very common to drop glottal stop T. But yes, perfect. I think I need to L plus NT. That's what I'm going to do. I'll make a note of that here. So I'm going to be making a lesson apparently in a couple weeks if I can catch up because I'm behind schedule. Vowel plus NT. I'm going to be making a lesson about nasalizing vowels, and I will specifically mention the vowel plus NT. And of course, I will give you a nice little shout out, Finn, whether you want it or not, because you're the one who identified it and brought it to my attention. So numbers are bad on me. Yeah, I don't know. I also have I don't really say I have like, oh, I have this thing. But I have what I might describe as like minor auditory dyslexia, where it's fairly common. Usually it doesn't cause any problems in understanding. But like, especially if there's like a pause, like I'm listening to like a podcast or a video or something. Or it could even be I'm talking to a friend, but especially if there's like a pause, apparently I notice if I pay attention to how my thoughts flow in my head, I notice that if there's pauses, my brain tends to be repeating the words like subvocally as I hear them for whatever reason. I'm not particularly conscious of that. I'm not like thinking the words as they're being said. It's just I notice there's like an echo of it in my brain. And sometimes what happens at the end of a sentence or a thought, especially if there's a pause, my brain will switch the last two words. And I usually don't notice it because it doesn't cause any difficulty in understanding. Like my brain sorts it out, but I'll notice sometimes I'm like, wait, did he say this, or this? Especially when the other way doesn't really make any sense. And so I go back and I'm like, oh, he said it this way, but I remember it this way. It's really weird. So yeah, my brain is odd. Luckily, it doesn't cause any problems in understanding somehow. But Claudio is here. Claudio, welcome. Claudio A. I like how the A is lowercase. It's like, I don't even know. It's like it's not part of your name. It's just A. But yes, welcome. Hello, I have doubt. So I imagine you're a Spanish or possibly Portuguese speaker. There's a difference between doubt and question in English. Very big difference. They tend to be used. I know there's a difference in Spanish and I assume Portuguese also, but I know in Spanish there's like una duda and una pregunta, and the way that those two are used in English don't always match up in Spanish. Doubt is something that you don't think is true. where a question is just like you're not sure about something, you want an answer to something. So we would probably say I have a question about how to use the word upon. That would be much better. If you used doubt, I have a doubt about how to use the word upon. That would sound better if you added a and changed it into about. But then it sounds like, it doesn't sound like you're not sure. It sounds like I don't believe it's used this way or something like that. So it's not quite the same thing. So yeah, I have a question about how to use the word upon. Could you please? That's what I mean. No problem. I like when things like that happen because everybody can learn from it. Right? I can give you a correction, and other people can be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I would have done the same mistake." So, how to use the word upon? Could you please explain us with examples? Okay, so the short, simple answer is don't use it. Upon is a word that you never, ever, 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 under no circumstances, in any case, you never have to use the word upon. It is an old, outdated word that is disappearing. We still use it. You'll still hear it. It comes up every once in a while. It's most commonly heard in the phrase once upon a time, when we're talking about fairy tales, like the beginning of a fairy tale. But it's not a word that you have to use. It's almost always replaced with on. So very literally, let's say I have a table, I have a pen. I can say, place the pen upon the table. Okay. How would I much more likely say that? Place the pen on the table. If you say upon, usually, actually probably in all cases, it's going to sound kind of formal and fancy. And most of the time, if you choose to use upon, it's not going to fit the because it sounds fancy. If you're not trying to sound fancy or formal, then it's gonna stand out and sound like you're trying to speak in an intentionally funny way. Not all cases, but most of the time, if you try to use upon, that's how it's going to sound. To really understand upon and why it exists and why on has largely replaced it, it helps to know about the logic of the preposition up and the logic of the preposition on. Those are both in my book. I do have I think it's 3 lessons because it's on is a big preposition. I divided it into 3 parts. There, you can look that up. Just type in logic of the preposition on, and you should find it. Make sure you start with part 1. That'll tell you everything you need to know there. The book has even more examples. I have not made the lesson for up yet, and I won't be making any more of those until I get an editor, because I just don't have time to make regular videos and the preposition videos. So if you want to know more about up, you have to go to the book right now, which you can find on Amazon. There should be a link in the description where you can find that. But if you can start to feel up and you start to feel on, upon will start to make a lot of sense, and why they were originally used together. And also, it'll make a lot of sense of why on has almost completely replaced upon, because of how those 2 prepositions are connected under the surface. They're very, very, up and on are very tightly connected prepositions. They interact with each other all the time under the surface. And by all the time, I don't mean literally in every case. I mean all the time is an amplifying expression to mean it's extremely common. So that's what I'm going to say about that. Again, my biggest piece of advice is just don't use upon. If you hear it, great. But you never, ever have to use it, ever. It's never going to be required. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think there are some cases where it doesn't get replaced by on, but in like 95 or 99% of cases, just say on. And that's what we're going to do in modern English. Dragon Ball Z is busy beating. That is not a family-friendly expression. Okay. That, in fact, that kind of crosses a line. I won't report it, but I will remove it. Subs are superior to dubs, hands down. Especially if you understand Japanese, which I don't understand enough Japanese to actually not need the subtitles, but that would be even better. Is SO shortened for shout out? God. How are you doing? I'm good, Meadow. Welcome. Can we say I fear for her future, her car, her health? Okay. So like I fear and then for something, basically, right? Yeah. That's perfectly fine expression. It does sound slightly formal in a way, a little fancy. Not too much. I mean, you can use it in everyday speech. It's perfectly fine. But maybe an alternative would be like, which you probably know, but like I'm worried about her future. I'm worried about her car. I'm worried about her health. You could even say worry for, which again, just like fear for sounds maybe a little bit fancier. But to be worried about would probably be a little bit more common, a little bit less fancy. I was going to say something else there. Fear for. Obviously, worry about or worry for and fear for are not exactly the same. Fear actually is a little bit stronger because if you're just worried, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, there's concern, you're worried. Fear sounds like more worry, more concern. So it's also a little stronger. So if you want to make it sound stronger, that's one case, one reason why you might want to use that instead. But there's nothing wrong with it in regular speech. Good. Explain is another grammar one. Oh, yeah. I know. I saw that and I was just like, I'm going to answer the question. I already pointed out one correction, but more natural explain that. Yeah, so a common mistake, I see this a lot from Spanish speakers. Obviously, I have more exposure to that mistake from Spanish speakers because my language exchange was Spanish when I was teaching myself. But I used to correct my Spanish partner all the time because she would say, like, explain me. If you say explain me, that means that you are the object grammatically. So you want me, the thing that I am explaining is you, right? That's why we need to. So if you say explain to me, usually with an it, like explain it to me or explain something to me. But you could say like explain to me why, blah, blah, blah. There are some cases I've noticed. I don't know if it's something that maybe is kind of changing. But I have noticed some cases where if you don't say to, it doesn't really sound like a problem. Maybe the context is clear enough. But in general, what you want to do, what I would recommend you doing is, unless you want me to explain you, use to, right? Explain to someone or explain something to someone. So that's the idea. To someone. Always remember that. To someone, to someone, to someone. It's just like say and tell, right? So you can tell someone something. We don't need to because tell is focused on the person, So the to is sort of implied in tell, where say means basically the same thing, except say is focused on the something. And so we need the to in order to point to the person. So you can tell, which contains to, tell someone something. It's already directed at a person. Say something, that could be it, or say something to a person. So because say does not contain to, it doesn't imply to a person, you have to add to someone. So it's the same with explain. You explain something to someone, just like you say something to someone. Anyway, if I can afford the preposition book, I recommend it. Well, if you can afford the preposition book, worth your time will improve your understanding of English prepositions. Yeah, it does need an edit. I am aware of that. It does need an edit. And when I am finally able to afford an editor that will edit a 400-page book, because I looked into it, it's going to cost. It's not going to be cheap to edit a 400-page book. I'm going to release version 2 with probably with the preposition as added, maybe a couple changes here and there, but there will be a version 2 in the future, or not a version 2, but like a second edition. Preposition workbook. Yeah, I know there's at least one mistake in the workbook. Amazon self-publishing, which is what I went through, does not make it easy to make simple changes, which is why I haven't done that. But it's just minor little details that don't affect anything. No problem, Claudio. You're very welcome. You tricked me, actually. You were the one who had a cat picture. He caught on to. I was wondering. So apparently, stupid user, you have a pretty distinct, perhaps, way of communicating, and or the things that you communicate is distinct, because Abdullah saw that you are the same person. Luca Lampariello. It does kind of sound like that. It's not the right spelling, but that's okay. It's Italian. Luca Lampariello always uses, right? He uses the phrase, I want to touch upon this idea. Yeah, that's a good point. So now, number one, as I said, it's not required. Okay, I want to touch on this idea. That is probably going to be the much more common way to say it that you're going to hear from most people. Number one, Luca. So he's obviously a very advanced English speaker. Very, very advanced. His pronunciation is almost perfect. Much of his speech is perfect. There's a little imperfection here and there, but that's fine. In terms of pronunciation, also in terms of grammar. And, as we might say, nothing to shake a stick at, but it's an idiom. Using upon, to some extent, it can also be a stylistic choice because of the way that it sounds. Again, it doesn't. The main point is that it's not required, right? There's always a way to replace it, usually on. Number two, it's something that's kind of fading from most speaker speech. Like it's fading from the modern language. It's on its way out the door, basically, especially in spoken language. So just because somebody says it doesn't make it an exception. He could be doing that for stylistic reasons. Maybe he wants to sound a little bit more educated, a little bit more formal, kind of. You don't need to do that to sound more educated. You're not going to sound uneducated if you don't use upon. He's using it properly in the right place that we could use it, but Yeah. So as I said, you will hear it here and there. It does still exist in the language, but as an English learner, my recommendation to you as an English learner is the easiest thing to do is to completely ignore it, right? Understand it when it's said, but you never have to use it. Now, if you want to use it, then you kind of got to go in a little bit and figure out where specifically to use it. And you can more or less do that on your own, but that's completely up to you. That's more of a stylistic choice. I had a Ging picture. Ging. I still say Ging. It looks like Ging. I know it's Jing. From Hunter x Hunter. Oh, that's where that's from. I still haven't watched that. I hear it's really, really good, but I haven't watched it. I probably should. But I'm not going to watch it anytime soon because I'm sure there's multiple seasons and I will get sucked into it. But then it disappeared on its own on YouTube. No idea why. Interesting. Might be a copyright thing, in which case that's really, really bad because they should not be doing that for user profile images. That's kind of crossing a line, I think. But yeah, YouTube has a big copyright problem, so I would suspect that might be it. Anyway, yeah, the main character from Hunter x Hunter, because I've seen the main character before, he reminds me of Ueki from Law of Ueki. If you haven't seen Law of Ueki, you should watch it. That's a really good one. Law of Ueki. That's a really, really, really good one. Not very long. I think it only had one season. I'm not sure, but it's a really good story. Especially the ending. Oh my god! Like I'm not gonna spoil it, but the way that the final battle was resolved, I was just like, oh my god, so brilliant. Anyway. 2 is a very strong preposition, and not having the exposure feel makes it bad. What is happening on my screen? Oh, there's like this little bug that's moving around, and I thought it was like something black was swiping on my screen out of the corner of my eye. I was like, what is that? Okay. I think I know what you mean when you're saying 2 is a very strong preposition, but I would never describe 2 as a strong preposition. Perhaps grammatically, definitely not in terms of pronunciation. It's very weak in terms of pronunciation, but it has its places where if it's not used, it will be felt for sure. It's strong in that way. I still am waiting on the verb book. Yeah, wrong separation of the verb book. Got to add that to my collection. Yeah, and I would be working on it if I weren't trying to post daily videos and failing at posting daily videos. Trying to grow the channel. I've decided my main objective right now is to get the channel to a point where I can afford an editor. So I'm going to push hard on the channel, making content until I can afford an editor. Right now, I'm not even making $100 a month from YouTube. If you want to become a shameless plug, and not a shameless plug, but shameless plug, if you want to become a member and help directly support the channel for as little as, I think, $2 a month, you can do that by clicking the join button. I'm not a salesman at all, but yeah, once I hit, so I'm not even getting money from YouTube every month. They don't give me any money until I hit $100. And to afford an editor, because I want to post at least 5 videos a week, different things, not just like extra practice between, big lessons. I want to have like, there's like Monday is one type of content, Tuesday another type of content. That's my long-term goal. In order to do that, to have multiple, big or main types of content throughout the week, I need an editor. And in order to, I found a really great editing service that seems pretty affordable. A lot of YouTubers use it, but it's going to cost, in order to get 5 videos a week, it's going to cost about $1,000 a month. So once I am making, I also need to hire an editor, which I might, or not editor, a assistant, which I'm probably going to hire the assistant first, because the assistant can help me, distribute on the podcast, distribute on other places, which is going to grow the audience even more. So I need to be making over $1,000 a month from YouTube before I can really afford the editor. And that's the point I'm trying to get the channel to. Just, 1,000, 1,500, that's not much in terms of YouTube. And I wouldn't even be seeing hardly any of that. Like it's all going to the assistant and to the editor. Like, so it's not even like to make me money. It's literally just for the purpose of the channel up to that point. Once I reach that point, I'm going to have a lot more flexibility in my time to not try to push so hard, because editing takes more time than anything. Like it's the single thing that takes the most time of all the things that I do. So if that gets taken off my hands, I can go back to the verb book. I can go and do some of these other projects that I want to do while still making regular content for you guys, because I don't have to edit it. So that's what I'm really trying to push for. And I'm going to try to continue to push for that. Daily uploads, if it's extra practice lessons, whatever, until I reach that point that I have an editor and an assistant. If that takes me a year, it takes me a year, fine. It takes me 2 years, I guess, fine, whatever. But that's what I'm pushing for. I'm hoping over the next 6 months or so. It's very idealistic, but we'll see. Moving on. Workbook is what I wanted to say, but brain got to bed. Yeah. I have another question. Okay, Claudio. The word "ah" is more an interjection of other thing or other thing. Oh, okay. So it's a correction. It's more an interjection or other thing. Okay, so I think so. Your question would be, the word "ah" is more an interjection or something else. You could say like, or is it another thing? That would also work. It's a little unclear with how you have it written here, but good correction from of to or. That makes a lot more sense. So is a word, which means, kind of hard to describe off the top of my head. If you go to the dictionary, you type in AWE, it'll tell you what it means. But like if you are in awe, it's like a very deep level of amazement or shock, like that's amazing. Wow, oh my God. So you're in awe. However, we do also use I probably wouldn't write with an E. Maybe some people would. We do make the sound ah as sort of an interjection. Depending on the intonation will depend on exactly what it means, but it's not actually a word. So if one very common use is if you see something cute, this is much more common, I think, for women than for men. But if you see something that's really cute, like maybe a baby or a cat or something, and you say, "ah," right, this sort of high-pitched "ah" sound, that's used for that. Like, "oh, it's so cute," or "it's so," and not to be cute necessarily, but, that type of thing. Where, or somebody does something really nice for you. Again, girls usually do this, not guys, but let's say you have a girlfriend, you give her flowers. She might think it's sweet. So instead of cute, it's sweet. It's a very nice thing to do. And so she might say, "aw." Okay, it may not necessarily be as high, but it's still kind of higher, like "aw." You could also, if you use more of a heavier intonation, and let's say this is very common, particularly for kids, but you don't have to be a kid. It's disappointment, to show disappointment. So easy example, let's say you wanted to go to Disneyland and all of a sudden your parents tell you, "nope, sorry, we can't go to Disneyland anymore." You might say, "aw." It can still kind of be high. You can still like, "aw," but there's going to be sort of this downward pull on it. It's not just like, "aw, ah, where it stays kind of high. So there's going to be some heaviness to it at some point, but it tends to be lower. Oh, we might say, oh man, so there's a little bit of a different inflection there, but in all cases, right, we're using ah plus some type of intonation in order to communicate that interjection. So it's a good question. But that and AWE as a word are not the same thing. I did make a joke about a cat girl. Yeah, that's true. That I think that's acceptable only because like there's nothing wrong with cat girls. Obviously, there's a point where a cat girl can cross a line, but we haven't crossed that line, and so there's nothing wrong with that. Give us an example, please, and thank you. Okay, so that was related to that previous thing. So there you go. Pronunciation-wise, yes, they sound the same pronunciation-wise. Education. You can't necessarily just put educational purposes in parentheses, but that's okay. What do you think about the expression check back in a jiffy? Jiffy. It's not Jeffy. Jeffy is not a word, which means quickly do. Okay, what? Use it that much. Okay, yeah, so which means quickly, period. Do you use it that much? Question mark. Punctuation is important, especially in writing. Can I say, at least the main punctuation, can I say what percentage of French watch TV or what percentage of the students love him? Okay, so two questions here. What do you? So what do I think of that expression? Check back in a jiffy. It's a normal expression. It's a little stylistic. Like you don't have to use it. You just say like check back in a moment. Usually we actually using it with check back that can work. It would probably more commonly be used in like be back in a jiffy. That's probably the most common, single most common combination there. But regardless, yeah, it means like quickly in a moment. Like you know, it may not literally be a moment, but you're using it to express like I'll be right back or I'll check back soon, right? So you don't have to use it. It can sound a little. Oh, this is a very subtle thing. You know, like there's some words like say groovy, right? Groovy is from the 70s. It's kind of dated. Some people still use it, even younger people. It's like a stylistic choice. You know, you like to use the word, it works, people understand you, but it has a certain feeling to it. Jiffy isn't quite that. It doesn't necessarily feel dated from a particular time, but to me, it feels a little like my mom or my grandma would probably be more likely to say it than I would. So I think probably like millennials and Gen Z, we're probably less likely to use it, but you'll still hear it. Like it's a perfectly fine phrase. It's a very subtle thing. I don't want to make a big point there on this point, but I want to be accurate also to how it feels to me. So yeah, it's a fine phrase. As long as you say jiffy, not Jeffy. What percentage of French watch TV or what percentage of the students love him? That's a perfectly fine sentence, yes. Alternatively, you can say like how many French people watch TV? How many of the students love him? So it won't always be of or of the after how many. But saying what percentage is fine. Yeah. We probably wouldn't do that if we're not looking for an actual like statistical percentage. So if there's like a study that was done on, you know, how many French people watch TV and how long they spend watching TV every day, that's a study that might be done. Then saying what percentage, you know, here, what percentage there, what percentage don't watch TV. that's where you'll probably find that. You could still use it in everyday speech, but if you're just trying to get like a number, like do a lot of French people watch TV or do not many French people watch TV? You probably just say like how many. Yeah. So context has a bit of an effect there, but it still works. But half the show is bad. Yeah, I always hate that when like it's always good when a show, especially in anime, but when a show like it starts good and then it goes bad, like that sucks a lot because it's like I don't want to watch it anymore. But it's always really good when it starts bad and then it gets better. Or even better when it starts good and it just keeps getting better. With the one exception of the second season of Sword Art Online, that's my opinion of Sword Art Online. It's like it just keeps getting better. Overlord 2, not number 2, but also like I'm kind of like, obviously they have the whole kingdom and stuff in Overlord now. It's like we're gonna see what happens with that. The first episode I was kind of like, okay, it's Overlord, it's good, not gonna complain, but at the same time I'm kind of wondering if this is gonna, this is gonna keep getting better or not. But season 1, 2, and 3 I was just like, oh my god, it just keeps getting better. So I have high hopes for Overlord 4. The second episode, definitely, it seems like it's picking up a bit, but doesn't quite have my seal of approval for compared to the previous seasons yet. Killua, okay. Do you mean Jiffy or Jiff? Yeah, Jiffy. I think you should be able to raise $100 a month through James. Good enough. Well, we also have to consider this is like the worst time to try to get more YouTube revenue, because like literally like I think there's we have like 4 members right now, 4 or 5 members, which is great. I love all of you guys, but that only makes about $30 right now that I'm getting. Obviously YouTube takes a percentage of whatever, but for me it shows $30, and then there's the ads. So we have just a small number of members, so that helps. It's good. Awesome. Thank you. Obviously, if we can get more members, that'd be even better. For the ads, right, with what the economy is doing, and it's kind of like, right, last month, my ad revenue basically like got cut in half, which has happened, to like most YouTubers across the board. Some people have lost, drastic amounts of money. And we don't know what's going to happen with the economy. Right? Is it going to go good? Is it going to go bad? Obviously, we're facing all kinds of troubles in the world with supply chains and this and that, whatever. So because of that, right, I'm trying to grow in an environment that wants to shrink, and that makes it extra challenging. So definitely any direct memberships are going to help, like more than anything, even if it's again just that lowest level, like $2 a month type of thing. That does help. If I had, even if it were like $1, I forget what it is. It's either $1 or $2. But even if it's just like $1, you get 100 people at $1. It's $100. Obviously, YouTube takes some of that, so it's not going to be quite $100, but it's going to be pretty close. So the numbers add up. But I have, over the course of this month, because I'm trying to post more or less daily and doing more shorts and stuff, my revenue numbers, according to analytics, for like the ads, has gone back to what it was before, with me making all this content. Because before, like sometimes I wouldn't even post a video for a whole week or longer, because I have so much I'm doing and this and that. And but now, trying to post pretty much daily and making all these shorts, I've bridged the gap. Hopefully I'm going to keep going, and that's going to be the differential, allow me to hit that $100. But even if it's $100, that's fantastic, right? That's going to help, but that's not enough to pay for an assistant. It's not enough to pay pay for an editor. So I need to get even farther than that before I can make any progress on that front. For the assistant, I'm probably like, I don't want to, a lot of people on YouTube, like you look up like, oh, how to hire an assistant and stuff. And almost all of them say like, oh, there's this website where they're based in the Philippines and you can hire like a Filipino assistant for like, I don't know, like $100 a month or something like that. And it's like super, super cheap and this and that. And it's like, I get that. It's kind of a win-win because like, you know, that's a lot of money where they are and it's super cheap for you on your business. But at the same time, like I'm a little idealistic and I know different standard of livings in different countries, but I still want to pay a human being a certain like respectable amount. And then if they happen to be in a country where that's a lot of money, that's just even better for them. So, but I also want to keep my costs relatively low. You know, I don't want to spend like $2,000 on an assistant when I can't afford that. So to start, I pretty much already have my assistant in mind. And to start, I'm probably going to need $600 a month from YouTube to pay for the assistant. As time goes on, I'll probably raise that for my assistant, but I think that's a good minimum given where this person lives. So $100 will be great. It's progress, but until it reaches 600, right, nothing much changes on my end for the work the amount of work that I'm doing. Like I'm not even doing the podcast or the blog or anything because like it's too much with everything else I'm doing. Once I have the assistant, they can start to make some more of these sort of different formats, extract the translations, or that's translations, the subtitles. And well, first make sure that the subtitles are good on the videos, extract that into a blog format, pretty it up a little bit, because I tried doing that myself. It's not too complicated, but it's just more work than I have time for. And then of course you take the audio from the video, make it into a podcast. Not all videos are suitable for that because some of them are very visual with what I'm talking about. But that's relatively easy. So we'll be able to grow English Hacks in other corners of the internet as well, which will ultimately help the channel grow even more, hopefully help snowball, and then I can hit the editor, and then it's all good from there. But towards or toward, which one's more common? It's a good question. Which one is more common? I have no idea. Does it matter which one you use? Absolutely not. Think of them as interchangeable. Technically, I think one of them is wrong. But whether it could be toward, if we're talking about a direction with forward, you can also say forwards, like as an adjective describing the direction forwards compared to backwards. You can also add it to forward. But if you say like, well, if I say move forward and you say move forwards, it doesn't sound too bad, but I guess, yeah, it works. Maybe be a little careful with the S version on forward. That one, I think forward would generally be the more common, safer one, but the S one does exist. But generally for directions, it doesn't matter. There's towards, forwards, backwards. What else do we have? Upwards, downwards. You can say toward, forward, backward, upward, downward. Whichever one comes out, it doesn't matter. Jiffy sounds fine, but rare. Overlord is so awesome, but the novel's dead. Is it? Is that why they stopped? I know the manga are usually better, but I don't pay attention to the mangas. So then I guess the anime, I assume the manga was more ahead of the anime, but maybe if it died, they were trying to decide whether to continue the anime or not. I don't know. But all the good shows are over on hiatus. I know. It sucks. What am I watching right now? So I found some good ones. Overlord 4, obviously. Isekai Oji-san, which apparently is from Netflix. So that's another reverse isekai where like he was in a coma in the real world, but his consciousness went to a fantasy world, and he like leveled up and learned all this magic and stuff. And then he woke up in the real world and he can still use the magic. And it's just like, it's really funny, really interesting show. I love isekais, which is like reborn in a fantasy world. And I like how they're playing on it and reversing it. That's also very fun. There's another one I'm watching, Shadow's House. I mentioned Hataraku Mao. They just came out with the second season. That's how I found it. Shadow's House, surprisingly, that's a really good one too. It's very interesting. Not the best, but it's good. Most basic tier is a huge support, so if anybody can do that, that'd be nice for the channel. Yes, it would. Not required, right? Not required at all, but it would be greatly appreciated if you choose to do so. There's that due. Subbing a video is a lot of work. You need to write the script down and then format it. Yeah, it does take a lot of time. I like the Gary Vee approach. I know a lot of people don't like Gary Vee. A lot of people don't know who Gary Vee is. If you know who he is and you don't like him, listen to him some more. He gives off a certain impression that is not accurate. The more you listen to him, the more you're like, okay, this is what this guy's saying. But anyway, I like the Gary Vee approach to content creation. It's just, and he even said like before he had a team, he was doing it himself. I know if I really, really killed myself and I maybe like cut down on some of my second job hours, I could maybe, like if I was super efficient with my time, like no anime ever, which I mainly just watch while I'm eating anyway, but I like work through eating, like I could probably, make 100 pieces of content a day between like blogs and tweets and all this stuff. But even just thinking about doing that for one day is just like, makes me want to go to sleep. And I'm just like, no. So once I have an assistant, obviously I'm not going to push all of that on them, but a lot of the other channels, like the podcast and the blog and stuff, the assistant is going to handle a lot of that. So yeah. But anyway, problem is that you're in the hardest phase. 1,000 subs to 10K subs is harder than 10K subs to 25K subs. Small creator into mid creator is a lot of work. It's easier to snowball from mid to higher mainstream. Yeah, I've heard a bit about that. Yeah, being a small channel is tough because like people don't know you, right? Like pretty much every student. I think I've had like 1 or 2 students out of all the students that I've had, which if you go on Italki, I think it says like I've worked with over 500 people, maybe over 1,000 people. Not that's all been like full courses and stuff. Sometimes people take a trial lesson and this or that or whatever. But what's my style on that? My teacher profile. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, so 465 students. So I've seen 465 unique individuals over the course of my teaching on Italki. And I think I haven't asked all of them, obviously, but almost every time I ask, the channel Rachel's English. And almost universally without fail, yes, right? I think there's like 1 or 2 people that I've asked that they're like, no, I haven't heard about that. So obviously, yeah, single biggest English teaching YouTube channel on, or YouTube channel on YouTube. There's some other teachers that have been on about as long as her that have like only 1 million or only like 800,000, which is a lot, but compared to 4 million. I mean, so yeah, obviously when she puts something out, people know about it. When I put something out, I'm still reliant on trying to make really good quality content, or as best as I can, and hoping that the YouTube algorithm shows it to the right people. So yeah, numbers help. My plan, though, the amount of subscribers that we're gaining since I've started to post more or less daily content has accelerated. Not anything crazy, but it's increasing. I'm hoping, and this definitely seems very possible to me at this point, I'm hoping that by the end of the year, we'll hit 10,000. And then from there, things should hopefully get a bit easier in terms of growth. I might even be able to hit 10,000 before that, but I'm not holding my breath on that. So, but I have to keep pushing. That's the whole thing. Got to make sure I keep pushing. What about anyway and anyways? Same thing. Same thing. Now, of course, there's anyway, and then there's any way. Like, is there any way to do it? That's different. That's where it's two words. But when you use anyway as one thing, you can add the S. It doesn't matter. I think anyways is technically wrong. Some people might think, oh, that, you know, blah, 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 blah. There's nothing wrong with it. If you're ever not sure, don't add the S, but it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. Mainstream is about luck and being in the right place at the right time. You got to be making pop content. See, when you say pop, that makes me think pop music. Popular content to make that work, but making it a big channel is possible after a while. Yeah. Well, I mean, wherever the channel goes is where the channel goes, but my longest term goal, and then after that, it's kind of like, well, let's see what happens. But my longest term goal that I want to reach in terms of subscribers is 1 million. I want to hit 1 million eventually. That's a sizable channel. That's like, you made it. You are established. Will we get there? Probably given enough time. But will we get there soon? Definitely not. GPG creators are high quality, but they don't post as often, and the algorithm couldn't care less. And it's easy to get following fast if you get somewhere mainstream or collab. Saw small Twitch content creators be just a nobody streamer in a small channel and then snowball after doing a collab. Yeah, things like that can happen. I did that collab with Fluent American. I still need to bring him on the channel at least once. I don't really know what to do with collabing though. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's some things that there's a lot of things that I don't want to say a lot of things, but there's quite a few things that I disagree with the way that it's taught. And so if most teachers are teaching it this way, and then, you know, it's like we're just going to disagree, which is fine, but I can't think of anything that would be worthy of a collaboration. I mean, like, we can hang out and just be like, hey, this person also teaches English. Let's answer some questions. Like, that's cool, but yeah. You know what I think of Rachel's? I only found an accident, never checked out until recently. Well, that's very high praise. I mean, Rachel's obviously very good at what she does. So even though we have some disagreements, we also agree on a lot of things. Like I heard, right, when I talk about like say an S plus P, which is going to be an SP hack coming out lesson, but S plus P, right? You'll hear a lot of people say like, oh, well, it's a B. Like even Geoff Lindsay says that it's a B. And it's not a B, but because, right, and that's the thing. I heard Rachel's English also says like she does not agree that it's a B. It's still a P sound. So we agree on that. That's something that she goes against the grain, that I also go against the grain. And so it's interesting that we actually align on that. But my hack, of course, is to just say it as a weak B anyway, because most natives won't even hear the difference. So even though it is technically still a P, you might as well just make it a weak B. That's my final stance on it. But chat English questions, 69 million. English Hacks International. At one point in the future, if the not just the channel, but like the English Hacks business, which eventually it will be an actual business, like officially established. If it gets big enough, there's also going to be probably an English Hacks Academy of some sort. And I don't know exactly where that's going to go or how that's going to happen, but I have some ideas for that. You never know, you might hit 1 million by the end of 2023. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, with how crazy the world's been over the last few years, hopefully nothing really, really bad happens, in addition to everything else, but maybe people get locked inside again, and then, 1 million people find my channel because they have nothing better to do. That'd be great for me, but I wouldn't want that to happen just for that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are channels that can grow really, really fast. Like there's channels that like they just put up one video and then they have 1 million subscribers, and there's various reasons for that. There's timing, particular topic, particular style. Usually they have like previous experience editing content, and so they can already put together something that's really polished compared to somebody who's just starting and knows nothing. So there's lots of factors to the growth. And especially if I can get an editor so that my videos actually maybe look a little bit better, that might increase the growth as well. So I just got to get to that point. That's the hardest thing, is just trying to get the ball rolling, even though I've already been doing this channel for like 3 years now. So it's like Sisyphus. You feel like Sisyphus, right? Just like pushing the rock up, and then it rolls back down. You got to push it up again. I want to get to the top and let the ball start rolling. But I believe in magic. Yeah, end of 2022. That would be a miracle. Yeah. Go, my army of English Hacks subscribers, and spread the word of the English Hacks magic. Of course, the channel name doesn't help either. I'm very well aware of that, and I was well aware of that when I chose the name. That's actually probably one reason why I haven't grown. Why I'm not bigger than I am now. Not that it would be much bigger, but maybe I'd already be at 10,000. But I'm not changing the channel name. I believe in the best student completing the course soon. Maybe. You just said I am not holding my breath to that. I don't think I said to that, or I said about that, or for that. Yeah, not to. To wouldn't work. What does it mean? I was wondering if somebody was going to ask about that. So I'm glad that you caught it. Okay, so what happened? So if I tell you, I'll give you an example. If I tell you tomorrow night, when you look at the sky, you will see a green moon. You might respond, I'm not holding my breath. So basically you say, I don't believe that, or I don't think that will happen. It doesn't have to necessarily be belief like, oh, that's impossible. That's sort of an extreme case. But if I say, hey, I'm going to start posting 5 videos a day, well, probably not. You might say, yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath, or I'm not holding my breath. Either way, gonna or not, it doesn't matter. So it's something that you don't think will be true. You don't think will happen. It's very unlikely. Okay. And the reason why the expression works is because what happens? Let's say I tell you, hey, tomorrow night the moon is going to be green. Okay. So if you were to hold your breath until tomorrow night, which would be impossible, but let's just go with it, right? Hypothetically, right? It's an idiom. It's not literally what it means. But if you were to hold your breath until tomorrow night, if the moon is green, you would start breathing again. If the moon is not green, well, it doesn't matter because you're dead, right? So the point is that if you hold your breath for too long, you're gonna die before it happens, right? So you're saying it's not gonna happen, basically. I don't think it's gonna happen. So it's a little weird. But there's a command or imperative form. So if you say, oh, hey, I think the moon tomorrow will actually be green, like there's an actual chance of that, but I don't believe that's true. I don't think it's gonna happen. I say, don't hold your breath. So it's the same expression being used slightly differently as like a command. I'm saying, yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't think so. Very unlikely. You would die before that happened if you held your breath. So that's all it means. Idioms are weird. As a matter of fact, he's able to reach 1 million tomorrow. That's still possible. That is technically true. But the possibility is probably 0.0000000000000000000000000001. Just like I could, jump off of the roof, and maybe when I hit the ground, quantum mechanics will kick in and I'll just phase right through the planet. Could happen. Probably just going to break my legs. It's a bit unrealistic, yeah. We don't pop overnight out of nowhere, yeah. Realistically, no, exactly. Mr. Beast, yeah. Yeah, do a if I did because obviously like Mr. Beast, there's like Mr. Beast in Espanol now, right? Like he's doing it, like dubbing it in different languages and stuff, which is insane. If I got a shout out for Mr. Beast, oh my god, yeah, that's how I could get 1 million subscribers overnight. Jeez. Don't go bug Mr. Beast. Don't do that. But that would be amazing, especially since Mr. Beast doesn't know me, doesn't know my content. Obviously, that's not his target. There's no reason for him to bring up an English teacher, but I wouldn't want him to, randomly do a shout out for somebody that he doesn't even know. Like, if I were his friend and he wanted to help me out, like that's fine. He knows me, and he, whatever. But I wouldn't randomly put if I were a big channel, I wouldn't randomly put my endorsement on somebody. So anyway, that would be cool. Yes, we need to be there. That would be cool. I'd like to see Josh and Mr. Beast. Yeah. I don't know. That seems pretty impossible. English hacks over time. It's already English hacks. What do you mean? How is that short? Oh, because I have like, what is it? English hacks feeling just like a native. Well, the short one is English hacks. I'm not going to remove the thing there. There's reasons for that. But like officially, it's English hacks. Like if there's ever like an official business with the name, it's going to be English hacks, not English hacks - feel English like a native. Can you hop on Skype off stream if you got a minute? No, because I don't have a minute. In fact, I literally have to end this stream in like 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, because I have to go. Hold my breath, not excited at all. I don't think it's used that way. Maybe. It's more about you don't think something is possible or likely. I think hold your breath is like standing up to somebody. Like keeping a promise. No. Nope. Not going to remove the slogan. Not from the channel name, no. There are reasons for that. But I have to go. And I'm caught up. Yay. Perfect timing. Okay. So this was basically a chat with Stupid User and Abdullah. But that's okay. We had some other people answer some questions. Very good. Thank you all for stopping by, hanging out, asking questions. This was a long chat. Hopefully I got everything. But yes, I do have to go. Looks like we just got someone in here. Was fun. Okay, if we have a combination of S plus TH or other way around. I answered this question last week. That's okay. So I do have to go now, Leonid. I have a lesson about, not directly about that, but it includes that. If you type in English hacks, all other major linking rules, you should find it. The thumbnail is like a bunch of chains, like a linked chains. And yeah, but the short answer, if you have like S and a voiceless TH or a TH and an S, it's very common that the S kind of takes over. That's like the super short answer. But it depends on if you're enunciating or not. It's in American English, it's very often the case, English in general, but especially American English, it's very often the case that it's not what does happen, it's what can happen, depending on how clearly you're speaking versus how fast you're speaking, et cetera, because different things can happen in different places, which makes it a little complicated, but it's not as complicated as it seems. So yes, thank you guys very much. I have to go. Stop by next week, Leonid, if you have time. This is usually when I end, but we can answer more questions next time. So bye, everybody. Bye, Leonid, and have a good week.